Hello, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, how are
Yes,
you?
how are you?
Okay, what was the problem?
I don't know. I think the internet connection.
Oh, okay. So are you together
And
or in separate places?
no, we are together.
Oh, okay, because I saw that
Yes.
Bezod is connecting with another device. I thought that maybe
Yes.
you're in two different places. Okay, so
Mm,
today is a new article. How are you, Bezod?
Thank you very much. Hello.
Hi, how are you? Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
so
So I can sign out from my cell phone
yeah, if you
and we
want,
can
yes.
keep talking, through Shirin's.
Yes, sure. Okay, so today we're gonna work on a new article. It's from Reader's Digest, published in Canada. Okay, who
mhm.
wants to go first?
Me.
Okay, okay, okay. Would you please read from the top?
Minority report. Yeah. How Asian Canadians are fighting a rise in
Mm-hmm.
pandemic racism.
Yes, very good. Go on.
Minority or I don't know, minority
No, it's
report.
Minority Report. Yes, by
Minority
Erica.
report
Yes.
by Erica Ngao.
Okay, it's probably Gao. Might be
Gao.
Chinese or something. Okay, so how Asian Canadians are fighting a rise in pandemic racism. Asian Canadian. What does Asian Canadian mean, Bezat?
Asian Canadian means maybe people whose ancestors are from Asia, but they live in Canada.
Yes, very good. Yes, exactly. Are fighting a rise in pandemic racism. Excuse me. What do you think pandemic racism means?
Pandemic racism means the maybe the prevalence of racism is so high that the writer decided to name it a pandemic.
No. Shir, what do you think it means? Don't read the rest, okay? I want you to guess first. Shir, what do you think pandemic racism means in here?
Racism.
Mm-hmm.
There are different rules for people in pandemic,
Okay.
and maybe it wants to point to a flight, and some Asian cannot go out from this country. Maybe like that. It's
Okay.
like a race.
You mean
Racism.
racism, not race. I didn't understand what you said. Asians cannot go out. What do you mean Asians cannot go out?
Because lockdown,
Because of the
after lockdown,
yes.
they couldn't came back to their country.
They couldn't go back to their
And
country or come back. Yes. But what does it
and
have to do with racism?
it's a kind of racism. I don't
No.
know.
Okay, you'll get it. I won't tell you now. You'll get it by reading the article. So, Minority Report. Pesat, what's a Minority Report? And does it remind you of anything? Does Minority Report remind you of anything?
I don't know the exact meaning of that in Farsi, but minority report is a report of a minor group, maybe in a society. أقليات.
Yes, exactly. Have you ever dealt with a minority group? Excuse me, report?
In minority report in which context?
Any context. It could be in any context. Because minority report means the report of a minority. Minority in a group. For example, there are different committees in our parliament. Mejlis, okay? And some people
Yes.
vote for something, a new rule or a new act or something, and a minority say no to it. They say, okay, we don't want this rule in our society. They can be called a minority. They have to write a report that's a minority report and say, okay, based on this and that, we're against this new rule, but we are a minority. 200 people voted yes, but we're just, for example, 15 people, we voted no. We're a minority report. It could be that. It could be
No,
anywhere. A minority report could be,
I haven't done it.
you haven't, okay. A minority report could
I
be,
haven't done it with my people.
yes, anything. But it's also the name of a movie. Haven't you heard of the movie Minority Report?
No.
No, okay. It's an interesting movie. It's science fiction, um, and Tom Cruise stars in it. But in here, it doesn't have anything to do with the movie or a minority group in a parliament or anything. It's in the society. Okay, would you please read the first sentence?
Yes. In the early months of the pandemic,
Mhm.
Barbara Lee was more afraid of racism than she was of COVID-19.
Yeah, okay. In the early months of the pandemic, Barbara Lee was more afraid of racism than she was of COVID-19. Pretty clear, right? No question. Okay, would you please read the second sentence?
Yeah. Yeah. In March, the 53-year-old Vancouver filmmaker
Mm-hmm.
learned that a white man had yelled racially
No.
charged r- race, racially.
Yes, racially. Yes, racially charged. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A white man had yelled racially charged
Mm-hmm.
remarks at a 92-year-old Asian man in a local convenience store.
Okay, go on, please. Go on.
The attacker
Mm-hmm.
then dragged the older man outside and pushed him to the ground,
Mm-hmm.
where he hit his head.
Yes. Uh-huh. To the end of the paragraph, please. Read to the end of the
Yeah.
paragraph.
Police later laid assault charges
Mm-hmm.
during a family outing a month later.
Mm-hmm.
An older white woman angrily approached Lee's own 12-year-old daughter
Mm-hmm.
and, speaking of the virus, asked her, well, where do you think it came from?
Okay. Do you understand the meaning of pandemic racism now?
Yeah.
Because this virus came from Asia.
Yes, it's
Pandemic.
yes. This is what they mean by pandemic racism. It's racism because of the pandemic. Okay, these people maybe didn't pay attention to the Asians around them in Canada, but just because of the pandemic, and they say that it started in China, so they attacked them verbally or in here physically because they're Asians. They think that they are the root and cause of the problem. That's pandemic racism. Okay, so Bezat, in March, okay, we read that part. White man, the 53-year-old Vancouver filmmaker. Who is this 53-year-old Vancouver filmmaker?
The attacker.
Why do you say that?
No. He's the narrator.
Very good. Yes, the writer actually. The writer
Yes.
of this report. Yes, the 53-year-old Vancouver filmmaker. What does Vancouver filmmaker mean?
Vancouver filmmaker. A filmmaker not from Vancouver.
Yes, from Vancouver.
Maybe
yes,
from Vancouver, yes.
Yes, from Vancouver. In here, from Vancouver. Learn that. What does learn mean in here?
Noticed that. Found out.
Find out, yes. It also means notice, but not in here. Read the
Yes.
sentence again. It doesn't mean notice. Can you tell me why?
In March, the 53-year-old Vancouver filmmaker learned that a white man had yelled racially charged. Maybe saw that.
She saw that? Do you think she saw that?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe
If
he
she
heard that.
if she had seen that, when they say witnessed, the filmmaker witnessed that, blah blah blah.
Yes, yes,
But as you said, she heard it. It somehow in
yes,
here learn means با خبر شد. بهش خبر رسید. Okay? In
yes,
here
yes.
means با خبر شدن. That a white man had yelled racially charged remarks. What does racially charged remarks mean in here?
Had yelled
You know the meaning of yell.
racially.
You know the meaning of yell, right?
Yell, shout.
Yes.
Had yelled racially charged remarks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What does remark mean?
What is the
Okay, let's do it one by one, word for word. What does remark mean in English?
remark به یک کسی چیزی چسبوندن مثلا.
No, that's not mark. No, it doesn't come from mark. Remark is one
Oh,
word.
yes.
Remark.
Remark.
That was
I
a
don't know.
hateful remark. For example, I said, that was a hateful remark. That was a beautiful remark. It means comment.
Oh,
Okay, it's a
yes.
synonym for comment. It's also a verb. You can say he remarked, blah, blah. Okay? This is his remark. He remarked, blah, blah. It's a verb and also a noun, remark. Now, racially, you know the meaning of racially. But what does charged mean in here? Racially charged remarks.
Charged remarks. Maybe she, maybe that 30, maybe, yeah, that man yelled at the other man, and he told him some, you know, he told him some comments, or as the writer said, charged remarks him.
No, see, charged is with racially. It's not with remark. Racially charged. Racially charged is an adjective for remarks. Racially charged. How are the remarks? Racially charged. What does charge
The
mean?
verb is,
You know the meaning of charge. What does charge mean? For example, when the battery of your mobile phone is charged, what does it mean?
in charge when it's out of energy or out of battery, we try to full it.
Okay, so it's
Make
charged.
it full.
It's fully charged.
Yeah.
It means that it is full of electricity or electricity. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah.
Okay, the electricity is enough in it so it can function well. So if something, a remark, a comment is racially charged, it means
Yeah. That comment is full of racism.
yes, very good, full of racism. Or also in I think in pure Farsi we say بار الکتریسیته. Have you heard that? بار الکتریسیته داره یه چیزی؟ بار الکتریسیته داره. So it's charged یعنی این بار روش هست. چه باری؟ بار ریسیزم روشه. بار نژاد پرستی. Okay? So the remark was full of racism, as you put it. Yes, exactly. At a 92-year-old Asian man in a local convenience store. What's a convenience store?
Convenience store is a store that you can buy your daily requirements in convenience store, like supermarket.
Yeah, it's bigger than supermarket, right? or it provides more items than a supermarket does. Yes, like that. So a local convenience store. Why does it say local convenience store? If you wanted to translate this into Farsi, what would you say? Local convenience store.
Local means محلی.
Yeah,
Local convenience store یه فروشگاه مواد غذایی محلی.
So you mean that there are some convenience stores that are not local? Some are
Yes,
local.
like hypermarket.
It's not local. What do you mean by that?
No, some of them are so, big that, for example, in Tehran, a lot of people from different parts, not local, not just local people, a lot of people from different parts of the, Tehran go there to buy their, the things that they need.
Like what? Can you give me an example?
Like hypermarket.
Which hypermarket? There are so many hypermarkets.
Like Shahban, like Repa.
Okay, so Shahban has a lot of branches in Tehran. Different parts of Tehran. There are different branches of Shahband in different parts of Tehran. So you cannot say that it's not local. See, we know the translation that says Mahalli, and we just say Mahalli. But it's something else, a bit, very little different from that in here. And what do you think they mean by saying local in here? When the writer of this article says that this happened in a local convenience store, what does he mean? What does she mean? You're
local.
What you said
maybe
was close.
when we have convenience, so different kinds of convenience stores in a country. Some of them are from maybe foreign countries, and the ones who belong to that country is local.
No, not that. You're very close. It's very the difference is really minute. Just tell me this. You read the first paragraph. Where did this happen? In which part of Canada?
Vancouver.
Okay. And who's the writer from? Excuse me, where's the writer from?
Vancouver.
So, what does local mean in here?
Means
Vancouver.
Yeah, you see, just I want you to translate it in Farsi. Don't say mahalli because it doesn't make sense in here. You cannot say توی سوپرمارکت محلی این اتفاق افتاد. Because when you say that in Farsi, it doesn't make sense. We don't have supermarket غیر محلی. What does it mean? Shirin, what did you say?
In zone, for example, منطقه.
Yeah, you're closer. I wanted it in Farsi, not English, but yes, you're closer. سوپرمارکت محل. You could say سوپرمارکت محل. یعنی همون جایی که ایشون زندگی میکنه. اوکی؟ یعنی توی این اتفاق مثلا تو کبک نیفتاد. تو همین ونکووری که خودش زندگی میکنه رخ داد. من فهمیدم که تو سوپرمارکت محل، حالا ونکوور هم بالاخره is a big city. Okay, so she might mean that the same neighborhood that she lives. In the same neighborhood that she lives. So a local supermarket. The equivalent in Farsi is سوپرمارکت محل. من شنیدم سوپرمارکت محل توش این اتفاق افتاد. I mean just around me, near me. It wasn't far from me. Okay, so a local convenience store. The attacker then dragged the old man outside and pushed him to the ground. You understand this part, right? Was that right? Okay. Where he hit his head. Police later laid assault charges. What is the structure in this sentence? Police later laid assault charges.
To lay someone.
No.
No. Some lay.
Mhm.
To lay assault charges.
Yes, very good. To
Lay
lay assault
something.
charges. Very good.
Yes.
And what are assault charges? What does assault mean?
Assault means the action that that man actually did,
Mhm.
and it was like a criminal, and or
Like
the
a
cruelty
crime.
that he,
Like
like a
crime.
crime, and the
Mhm.
and the cruelty that he did
Mhm.
is actually an assault,
Mhm.
and the police charges him because of his assault that he did.
Yes, very good. Can you give me a synonym for assault in English? A very easy word.
Assault.
It starts with A. A-T.
Attack.
Yes, attack. Yes, a physical attack. Yes, exactly. Okay. During a family outing, what's a family outing?
Maybe family when family go out.
Goes out. Goes out where?
Yes,
Goes out where?
goes out for maybe buying something, or
No, not for buying something. No.
or maybe for for a picnic or
Mhm.
camping.
Yeah, you could say that. Yes. Yes. Outing is a short trip. You take this trip for fun, of course. It's usually just one day. When it's just one day, it's inside the city, it's called outing. Or it's not far from the city. You can come back at night. You don't have to spend a
Yes.
lot of time on the way. Yeah, okay. So during a family outing a month later, later than what?
A month later, later of that event.
Yes, after that event. Yes, exactly.
I mean the assault.
Yes. An older white woman angrily approached Lee's own 12-year-old daughter and, speaking of the virus, asked her, speaking of the virus, what does this mean?
Speaking of the virus, حالا که صحبت ویروس شده، حالا که در مورد ویروس صحبت میشه.
Yeah, that's an expression somewhere else, not in here. In here, it's reduced clause. What was the full form?
While she was speaking of the virus.
Yes, but
در حالی
also,
که.
yes, exactly. But also what you said, speaking of is an expression, as you said. حالا که صحبتش
Yeah.
شده. Speaking of.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Can you give me an example of speaking of?
Yeah. Speaking of coronavirus, I can say that based on statistics, the number of people who were admitted in hospital last week dramatically decreased.
Decreased, okay. Admitted
Yes.
to, right? Admitted to the hospitals.
Yes, yes.
Shirin, can you make an example of that? Make a sentence.
Shirin went out for, someone knocked on the door, and I think it's the postman,
Okay.
and she went out, and she will join soon.
I thought that you want to make another sentence. Okay.
No.
Okay. So speaking of has other variations too. You said that speaking of the pandemic, this is the full form. But in conversation, they sometimes say speaking of. Have you heard of this example?
Only speaking of?
Yes. For example, I'm talking about pandemic. Okay, I say, okay, death rate in Iran is blah, blah. Death rate in the US is blah, blah. And I'm just talking about the pandemic. You suddenly interrupt me and say, speaking of, I've heard today that fewer and fewer people are being admitted to the hospital because of the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of. And
Yes.
also, speaking of which, you can also interrupt my speech and say, speaking of which, I've heard today that they were admitting fewer and fewer people. But even more informal way is saying just speaking of. Speaking of, I've heard that fewer and fewer people are being admitted to the hospital like that. Okay.
Yes.
So is Shirin here now?
Shirin, yeah,
Yeah.
she's here now.
Okay, Shirin, can you make an example, a sentence using this expression?
Speaking of, no, she's, yeah,
She's what?
she's out of the,
Oh,
she's out of the garden, I
She's
think now.
okay. Out of the
Man
garden.
can
I don't think they say
Yeah.
it like that, do they?
Yeah, I know.
No, but there's something that was
She's
similar.
out of the picture.
I'm not sure. I have to check, but there's something similar. Okay, let's let Shirin make a sentence. In the meanwhile, I'll look for it. Shirin, I want you to make a sentence with speaking of. Okay, speaking of means حالا که صحبتش شده. For example, Behzad is talking about his patients in the hospital and the pandemic. And I interrupt him and say, speaking of which, I've just heard that fewer and fewer people are being admitted to the hospitals for coronavirus these days. That's like saying حالا که بحثش پیش اومد. Okay? Now I want you to make a sentence.
For example, you can say, speaking of English, I have decided to have IELTS class with Ms. Mubshir.
Yes, you can say that.
Yeah.
Yes. If we were
Yeah.
talking about IELTS before that, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I said that there are variations of this. One is speaking of the, and then you mentioned the subject. For example, speaking of the pandemic, speaking of the IELTS test, blah, blah. One is saying speaking of which, and one is saying speaking of. That's more informal, more conversational. Okay? Beza, don't help her. Okay, I want her to make her own sentence in here.
Speaking of
For example, suppose that we were talking about the speed of internet.
Yes.
You want to add something about internet. You can say, speaking of internet, you can tell us a news.
No, give us a
about the
piece of news. Yes, you can tell us
A piece
about
of
a piece
news,
of news. And Shirin, it means حالا که بحثش پیش اومده. حالا که حرفش شده.
Okay. We talk about speaking of the kind of job, variety of jobs. It's better to find a job with good salary.
Yeah, okay, that could be an example. Yes. Give me another example. I want to make sure that you understood it well. So give me another example.
For example, Ghazal asked me about her future job, and she told me speaking of the job, please help me to find a good job with a high salary.
I think it's better to use a piece of news after that, speaking of something, not requesting, or
No,
am I right?
No, you could request something. Yeah. Speaking of jobs,
Yes.
now in here, Shirin, if you had said speaking of jobs, it would have been better. Okay, speaking of jobs, not just job. Okay, give me another example. Give me another example. Now, just think that I've been talking about convenience stores, different convenience stores throughout the country. Comment on that with speaking of. Just suppose that we've been talking about convenience stores. You can talk about a new one that you've heard of.
Speaking of the convenience store,
Speaking of the convenience stores,
I recommend you the best one of them. Its name, its name is, for example, Walmart.
Yes, very good. So in here, instead of speaking of convenience stores, you can say speaking of which, also speaking of, and then you start talking about what you recommend. Very good. Okay. Well, where do you think it came from? Where do you think it came from? Okay, now Shirin, would you please read the second paragraph?
Speaking of the
That's
virus,
the question that the man, a woman, the white woman asked the writer's daughter. The writer has a 12-year-old daughter, and as you must have understood by now, the writer is Asian descent. She is Asian originally. So her daughter looks like Asians, like other Chinese guys. So that's why the white woman approached her, went near her, went to her and started speaking about virus and then said, well, where do you think it came from? What does it mean? It means that it came from China. It came from your country. You're the reason why there is this virus exists. Okay. So the second paragraph, Shireen, such.
Such incidents have become all too common since COVID-19 first emerged in Wuhan, China.
Okay, wait. Such incidents. What does incident mean in English? What does incident mean?
Incidents happening.
Yes, happening, event, yes. Incident is an event, a happening. Have become all too common. What does all too common mean? It's an expression, by the way, and say it in English, please.
Have become all too common. For example, this type of event, you can see this type of event around the world. They all the same.
No, not the same. All too common. All too common is the expression in here.
All too common.
Yes, all too common. The whole 3 words, all too common, is the expression.
Yes.
It means?
It means it's very, prevalent nowadays.
Very good. Yes, exactly. It happens a lot. It's all too common.
Happens a lot.
Yes.
All too common.
It's all too common. All too common, all together. Not just all, not just too common, all too common. Okay, all too common since COVID-19 first emerged. Yes.
How do you pronounce it? All too common or all too common?
I don't know that. I didn't focus on that. I don't know. I just say all too common. I just say it like this.
All too common.
Okay. I don't know if I can say it all too common. I don't think you can put this stress on all. Doesn't make sense much. All too common.
Yeah, all too common.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not that expert in pronunciation, so I don't know. I have to check that. Okay, so since
and I want to add something else. I've forgotten last session.
Yes.
When you pronounce laboratory, laboratory in American accent is laboratory, and in British accent is laboratory.
Oh.
Your accent is American. What you say, I think laboratory.
Because I cannot, I did not learn them all American. A lot of our teachers taught us some British grammar, some British
Oh, yeah.
accent, and we didn't know. And they're all in my mind. I don't know which one is which. If I know, I tell you, and sometimes I don't know, or sometimes I forget.
Because I used to pronounce laboratory, and I remember a guy
Yes.
told me about that when your accent is British, it's better to say laboratory.
Yes.
But when you speak in American accent, it's laboratory.
Yes. Yes. I know that, but yeah, I forget, and sometimes I don't know really which one is which. So don't count on my accent. You have to check it all. If I'm sure, or I think that I'm sure, because sometimes I think I'm sure, and then I see that, oh, well, I was wrong. Then I tell you. But if I don't know, then you have to check it yourself. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So since COVID-19 first emerged, Shirin, what does emerge mean? And can you give me a synonym for emerge in English?
When something came out of from somewhere,
Okay, very good.
emerged.
Yes, that is the meaning of emerge. But can you give me a synonym for emerge in English? Just one word. What you said was a sentence, and it was correct, of course. But one word. I'm sure that you know that. It's a very common word. It starts with an A and P.
Appear.
Appear.
Yes. Sure, why did you say appear? Yes, appear. You know, disappear, appear. Appear. Emerged, appear, yes. Do you know the noun form of emerge? Emerge in here is a verb. Do you know the noun form?
Emergence.
Yes, very good. Yes, emergence. Yes, exactly. In Wuhan, China, what is the tense of this sentence, Shireen?
Tense.
Yes, the tense. Tense means present simple, past perfect. These are tenses. Tense. T-E-N-S-E, tense. We say in Farsi زمان جمله. گذشته ساده، حال ساده. Yes.
Present perfect.
Yes, simple present perfect or present perfect simple. Exactly. Since COVID-19 first emerged in Wuhan, China. Okay, would you please read the rest? Politicians.
Politicians and media outlets around the world have repeatedly used racist language such as Kung flu and Chinese virus to describe the disease. Fueling the stigmatization that a certain group, Asian people, and specifically anyone of Chinese descent is to blame for the pandemic.
Okay. So, politicians and media outlets. You know the meaning of politicians, right, Shireen? Politicians?
Yes.
Okay. And media outlets. We had media outlets before, many sessions ago. Do you remember the meaning of outlet?
Yeah.
Okay, what does it mean?
Yeah, and I remember when you asked me about outlet, I told you دکه روزنامه فروشی.
Okay. Okay. I didn't remember that part. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
and media outlets, it means they, big companies that have, a lot of newspapers.
Yes, newspapers, any kind of media. Outlet in
Yes.
Farsi, just the word for word translation of outlet is خروجی.
خروجی.
Okay, like saying خروجی. Okay, so like saying خروجی رسانه ها. I think we say that in Farsi too. That must be a translation.
Yes.
Okay, could be any kind of media. newspapers and TV channels, all these.
Yeah.
Outlet
And that
also.
lesson was
Mhm. Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Hello, okay. So you were saying?
We had a lesson about, newspapers and Murdoch.
Yes, yes, Rupert Murdoch, yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's what you remember. Sharing outlet.
Yeah, we
also-
had media outlet. Yeah.
Yes, you were saying something.
Yeah, we had media outlet in that lesson.
Yes, yes, exactly. And sharing outlet also means something else. Do you know another meaning for outlet?
Sale.
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 Outlet means sale.
In a big store, there is some line. They they write outlet.
Okay.
And there is some, for example, clothes that are on sale, and there is they don't have this type of style again. And
like
they
تخفیف
are
تکرار نشدنی, like that?
Yeah. No, there, for example, there is a style of a clothes, and they don't make it again, and they sell it under price and discount it. And you can see this outlet line every month of years, and they call it outlet, but all of them are very good, but this style never repeat again.
Manufacturer.
I didn't know that. Okay, thanks for sharing. I didn't know that. I meant something else for outlet when I said that. Where did you say this? In which country?
All country that I travel.
No.
For example,
all countries that I've traveled to. I have traveled to. Not all countries I traveled. All countries that I have traveled to. Okay, go on.
There is this there is one store,
One floor.
that they took them, and they are very cheap, but very good and nice.
I see. Thank you very much. Thanks. So another meaning of outlet. What other meaning for outlet do you know?
The opposite of inlet.
No, not that, no. For example, in your homes, you have electricity outlets.
Oh, yes.
They're the plugs, the outlets. Okay. Okay, so back to the article. Politicians and media outlets around the world have repeatedly, you know the meaning of this, right? Used racist language, you know this, such as kung flu.
Yes.
Shirin, can you explain this? Kung flu. What's this?
Oh, I can guess.
No. Don't mess it.
Kung
Let her.
Fu.
I can give you a hint, Shireen. It's a play with a word.
Kung
Yes.
Fu.
Yes.
It came
It
from.
it
It
doesn't
comes
come
from.
No, it doesn't come from Kung Fu. So we have Kung Fu, but in here what you see is Kung Flu. What does it have to do with Kung Fu? Oh yeah, what does it mean? Can you explain it?
Kung Fu is the very hard sport, and
it's a martial art,
for,
right? It's a martial art.
And it's very hard, and if someone kick you by Kung Fu, for example, Kung Fu
rules, you could say.
Yes, you hit badly, and you will hit it you will hit badly.
You will be hit. You will be hit badly. Yes. And die. And die.
Yes.
Yeah, but what does it have to do with Kung Flu? And the writer is talking about pandemic racism. What is this? Can you explain this in English?
Because this virus, if you contaminated with this virus and strong.
No, Shireen, it doesn't have anything to do with the strength of a person who practices Kung Fu. Why?
Kung Fu is a martial art that comes from Asian countries, and it belongs to them. And actually, I think they want to, humiliate them by playing by words. And instead of Kung Fu, they say flu, and maybe they want to say that you are the reason of spreading flu and other viruses all over the world.
Yes, exactly. Because coronavirus is some sort of a flu, right? Some sort of a flu. I don't know if I'm right. And the Kung Fu is as Bezat put it, a martial art from China or Asian countries. And they play with the word Kung Fu, and instead of fu, they say flu. Flu means what, Shireen? Flu is? Influenza.
Influenza.
Okay? So they're playing with it, Kung Flu. And also Chinese virus. Well, Chinese virus is pretty much clear. To describe the disease. Now here, Shireen, fueling the stigmatization that a certain group, Asian people, and specifically anyone of Chinese descent, is to blame for the pandemic. Fueling the stigmatization. First of all, tell me, what does it mean to say destigmatization? Stigmatization. What is the verb form? What is another noun form of this? And what is the meaning of this?
Stigma.
Yes, very good. Yes, stigma is another noun form. Yes. And what is the verb form?
Stigmatize.
Very good. Yes. Now the meaning in English. What does it mean?
Stigma. Yes. They want to emphasize that this problem is the reason of this problem are, Asian groups and Asian people.
Yeah. But what does stigma mean? Not in here. What does stigmatization mean, just generally?
Stigma is any signs or symptoms
of what
that has a specific it has a characteristics. Maybe it's a symptom that is a sign of a bad thing.
Okay, you're close, but not exactly. Can you give me an example instead of explaining it? Can you give me an example?
For example, when we have a patient with different symptoms, we have some differential diagnosis.
Okay.
At first, we don't know what we're dealing with, but for any particular disease, we have some stigmatas, and based on that stigmatas, we can find out, for example, we're dealing with an infection or a blood disease.
Do you mean stigmatize? Just like the way we write this one, the spelling is the same. Stigmatize.
Stigmata. Yeah, I think so.
And what is it?
Stigmata.
It's a test or something?
No.
No.
Kind of symptoms.
Okay, maybe it's one of the meanings of stigmatize in medicine. I never heard of that. But stigmatize is when you think that something is not a good thing, not a good quality. It's like a disgrace. For example, someone went to prison, okay, for anything, for a crime they committed, or maybe by mistake. When they come out of prison, they cannot find a job easily. That's a stigma.
Yes.
The stigma of having been to prison. Yes, exactly. Very good. Yes, lakenang. Also, we say ang also. So when you stigmatize somebody, بهش ang میزنید. You say that you have this stigma.
Yes, yes.
That's stigmatization. So in here, what is the stigma? Being Chinese. And Chinese virus describe the disease fueling the stigmatization. So the stigmatization existed. But when the media started using words like Kung Flu and Chinese virus, they fuel the stigma. What does it mean, Shirin, to say that something fuels something else? What does fuel mean?
Fuel, like gas in the tank, and it's burning something, and the engine can work with this fuel. And
in here, fuel in here is a verb, Shirin. What does it mean in here? Because we know that in here they're not filling up their tanks or anything. They're not talking about their cars. It's not gasoline and stuff. What does fuel mean in here?
Something that can make
reinforce,
very good,
stimulate.
Yes, very good. Reinforce it. Yes, because people first that they heard that it came from Wuhan, they started criticizing Chinese people. But when they hear it on the news, they read it in newspaper, they say Kung Flu, they say Chinese virus, they say Wuhan virus, etc., stuff like that, it fuels their anger. It makes them angrier. It fuels their stigmatization. They do it more or more powerfully. Exactly. There's a certain group, Asian people, and specifically anyone of Chinese descent. Sherry, what does this part mean? Anyone of Chinese descent. What does descent mean in here? Yes, yes.
Chinese descent
group?
In English.
Ragurishi Chini.
Yeah, that was English. I said in English. Yes. Okay.
Chinese ancestor.
Yes, very good. Yes, Chinese ancestor. You could be, for example, when you move to Australia, and I don't know, 20 years from now, Ghazal gets married and has a child. Her child is Iranian descent. Okay, she was born there, but the ancestors, the grandparents are Iranian. She's Iranian descent. So maybe these Chinese people in Canada have been living there for, I don't know, more than 50 years. Maybe they've been born here,
Mhm.
but they're Chinese descent. They're Canadian, but Chinese descent. They look like Chinese people. Okay,
Yes.
is to blame for the pandemic. What does this part mean,
Mhm.
Shireen? Can you explain this?
Mm,
There's a structure in here. Can you find the structure?
to blame for something.
Not to blame, no. But you're close. Just one word.
Asian people, specifically anyone of
Blame.
Mhm. No. You said to blame for something. That's not the whole structure. You have to add something else.
Mhm.
What is it?
To be blamed
Very good. To be blamed for
for something.
something. Now make a sentence with this.
Mhm.
Shiri, make a sentence with this.
Mhm.
In present simple.
Yes. Mm,
Present simple, yes.
yes, present simple. Mm, um,
Tell me this, Shirin. Who is to blame for the inflation in our country now? Who is to blame for the inflation in our country now?
Hassan.
Yes. Now make a sentence, a whole sentence. Use Hassan in it.
Yes.
Hassan is to blame for
Very good. For the inflation.
For the
Okay, now say it in past simple. Now say the same sentence in past simple.
Hassan was to blame
Mhm.
for the inflation in our country.
Yes. Now say it in present perfect simple. Present perfect simple.
Hassan
Hassan has been blamed for the
No, not has been blamed. No. Focus. The structure is to be blamed for something.
Hassan has
Excuse me, I wrote it wrong. To be to blame. I'm sorry, I wrote it wrong for something. Okay, to be to blame for something.
to be to blame.
You said it right the first time. I just wrote it wrong. Hassan.
Hassan has to. Hassan has been to blame for the inflation.
Yes. Now say it in past perfect. Past perfect simple.
Hassan had to.
No.
Hassan had been to blame for
the inflation. You don't know that? Inflation. Inflation. Now say it in future. Future with will. Simple future with will. Bezos don't help, okay? I want her to do it.
Hassan will be to blame for inflation.
Yes, very good. Excellent. Okay. Now, the rest of it. Okay, you didn't read the rest, did you?
No.
Okay, read the rest, please.
The
Angus Reid. That's a name.
The Angus Reid Institute found that almost a third of Chinese Canadians had been made to feel like they pose a health threat.
Yes. Can you explain this to me, Shireen, in English? And the Angus Reid is the name of an institute. Okay, we don't want to do anything with that. Just explain the rest. What did this institute do? Say it in plain English, in simple words.
They did a survey.
No. Let her, okay? Let her. Let Shireen.
Yes.
Founded I
You know.
This institute found most of Chinese
Most of the Chinese
had
people.
this feeling.
What feeling?
Chinese
Yes, very good. What feeling?
Blame for pandemic.
Okay, very good. To be blamed for the pandemic. Very good. Thank you very much. So that's the understanding. The whole meaning of the sentence is this. Now we want to analyze the sentence. So the Angus Reid Institute, that's the name of an institute, found that almost a third of Chinese Canadians. Shirin, what does a third of Chinese Canadians mean? A third. What does it mean?
Yes, a woman.
Yes, very good. You could say 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3. As هر 3 نفر یه نفر. Or a third or 1/3 of Chinese Canadians had been made to feel like. I want you to analyze this. Tell me the tense and voice of this sentence. What is it?
Had been made. Past perfect.
Past perfect what?
Past. No.
Yes, it is past perfect. But past perfect what?
Great.
What?
Past perfect.
Is it active or passive?
یه لحظه. Been. Passive.
Yes. Past perfect passive. Can you give me the active form of this sentence? Use people as the subject. Use people, the word people, as the subject.
People had made.
Very good.
Had made to feel like.
No.
Made like.
People had made. So far, it's correct. People had made. Okay, now the rest of the sentence. You have to mention the object in here. What is the object?
Had made Chinese
Very good.
Canadians.
Very good. And the rest of the sentence. People had made Chinese Canadians. Okay, what?
To feel like they pose a health.
Excellent. Exactly. To feel like they pose a health threat. What does it mean to pose a health threat?
They pose. They make.
Very good.
Make the problem.
Yes, make a health threat. Yes, instead of pose, you can say make. They're a threat, a health threat. Yes, exactly. Okay. Visit, would you please read the rest? Just 1-2 sentences, and we'll finish that. By April?
Yeah. By April, Lee had enough.
Okay, wait here. By April. What does by April mean in here?
In April.
So why didn't they say in April? Why did the writer write by April?
By April.
During April?
No.
Maybe she wants to say by the start of April.
Just that. Of course, it's by the start of April, but why didn't they say in April? Why did they write by April? What does by plus a time mean? By plus time expression. What does it mean?
Maybe it is something that started in the past. I mean, before April, and it lasted up until April,
Very good.
And in this way, she wants to say that we are dealing with a process that started maybe a couple of months before.
That's very good. Exactly.
And now we are
Exactly.
facing.
So what is this process? You're right. It started some months before April. But what is this process that started before April?
Maybe these actions that are, resemble of racism.
No.
Resemblance of.
Okay, in order to answer that, you have to tell me first the meaning of have had enough. It's an expression. Lee is the writer, or the person the writer is talking about. Had enough.
Maybe now we are not. Yeah, now we are not in April. Maybe it is.
No. Forget about April. Forget about April. Explain this part. Lee had enough. Full stop. There's an expression in here. What is it?
Yeah, the right.
Have enough.
To have enough.
Yeah. What does it mean in Farsi?
به اندازه کافی دیگه negative. It has negative meaning. I think.
But not به اندازه کافی. به اندازه کافی is another expression. They say enough is enough. بس هر چیز دیگه یه حدی داره دیگه. به یه اندازه دیگه کافیه. Enough is enough. This one is another one. This one is to have enough. But in here it's past perfect.
Yeah. Maybe by that time she had enough documents to talk about this.
Not document. You were close. It's close to the thing that you said in Farsi, but not exactly that. You were right, actually. You were so close.
Oh, by that time she had, encountered enough racism.
Okay, what do you mean by enough?
More than enough.
Yes. دیگه طاقتش تاق شد, you could say.
Yes.
Okay? To have enough. In here we have had enough. That's past perfect. Can you say it about yourself? بگید طاقتم تاق شده. And say it in present perfect.
Present perfect.
Sometimes I have I have such a hectic schedule that I say to my colleagues, I have had enough.
Very good. Or the short form, I've had enough. Short for I have. I've had enough.
I've had enough.
Yes, I've had enough. دیگه بسمه. طاقت هم دیگه تاق شده.
Yes.
How do you say به اینجام رسیده? Okay? When we say in Farsi به اینجام رسیده, we point to our lips or our mouth with our hand, right? Right?
Yes.
به اینجام رسیده. و دستمون رو میبریم به دهنمون نشون میدیم. به اینجام رسیده. یعنی دیگه مثلا تو آبم غرقم دیگه بالاتر از این بیاد خفه میشم. But in English they have the same expression, but they point to the space above their heads. به فضای بالای سرشون اشاره میکنن, میگن به اینجام رسیده. How do you say that in English?
No.
I've had it up to here. I've had it up to here. به اینجام رسیده. I've had it up to here. So, in here you learn three expressions. One is to have enough. One is I've had it up to here, to have it up to here. And also enough is enough. Enough is enough means بس دیگه. هر چیزی حدی داره. بس دیگه. هر چیزی حدی داره. Okay? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, it's a long article, and I think we better finish it here. There's a lot to do. For next session, we'll have a review of this session. No new articles, just a review, okay? Okay? Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and see
Thank
you
you.
Wednesday.
The master of review is here.
Yes, yes, sure, of course. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Have a good day.
You too, dear. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.